Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Kingdom Hearts Final Mix. In the last part, we continue deeper here into Hollow Bastion, doing several puzzles and finding a lot of Heartless along the way. And now it's time for us to get closer to this world, Zenith. We don't finish the world today, but we're getting pretty close. Due to how long Hollow Bastion is, it's easily the world you can get the most used to the Heartless in, but at the same time, that also means it's probably the world you're most likely to actively get really tired of the Heartless in by the end of it. And the unfortunate thing is there's an extra little fold to that makes it a little worse in the last chunk of the game, but we'll save talking about that for after the world itself. So this room is on the opposite side of the balcony from where we ended last part. Our goal is to grab the chest over here for one thing, and then investigate the switch here to lower the other block down. This will create a staircase letting us get further into the world. With that said, once we climb that staircase, there's going to be another switch up there. That one is going to raise one of the two blocks here on the balcony back up, which will create a staircase the opposite direction towards another chest, as well as another switch. That switch is one we've technically seen before. In specific, I talked about it last time we were taking the long elevator up from the room near the library save point. When you're up there, you want to hit that switch and then find your way back to the library slowly in order to get another item. If you leave the world before doing so, you need to come back up here to trigger that switch again to swap the elevator's path. Guess what I forget to do? Thankfully, no harm done. Ultimately, it's just a waste of my own time later on. But worth noting while we're also here, if you haven't grabbed the Royal Crown accessory yet that we got at the very end of last time, do that before you leave. Not that it's permanently missable in any way, it's just nice to have as early as you can, especially dependent on your playstyle or dream weapon of choice. Since I tend to choose the Dream Shield, the 2 extra MP can go a long way making me feel a lot safer. But if you chose the Dream Sword, it's probably not your best option, but it's still really nice to have. And hey, if you chose the Dream Rod, that means you already had extra MP over the other 2 Dream Rounds, and that means you're probably doing a lot of spell casting that does a lot of damage in this specific game, whereas I tend to kind of play both fields, ultimately. Worth noting, the trek back to the library after hitting this switch can seem long. It really isn't, though, as long as you do it smartly, namely falling down a few cliffs. Because if you say just jump over the wall here and fall down, you're maybe 2 or 3 screen transitions away from being directly in front of the front gates. And then you enter that, you're in the main hall, and then the library is right there. It's the trek back up that can take a bit longer. There is a little bit of a good way around that from memory, though, and that's actively to progress just slightly further into the world and hit the next save point, because then you can hit it, use it, jump down, go back to the library, and then either head back to the world entrance's save point or the save point in the library to head back to the gummy ship and then enter back up here closer to the peak of the world. But I forgot to do that as well because I just wasn't thinking about it. Oopsie. Since the way I recorded this game was often doing a world in its entirety and then saving and starting a new session at the start of the next world or side quest, I got a bit scatterbrained here. The relatively large scale of Hollow Bastion compared to other worlds meant there was more for me to forget for my practice run, so oopsie. Also, because I haven't mentioned it yet, the exploration and battle themes in this world are probably my favorite in the game. Juicy melody, but also incredibly atmospheric. I love the music here.
So, I see the path has emerged at last.
Yes. The keyhole to the darkness.
Unlock it, and the Heartless will overrun this world.
What do I care? The darkness holds no power over me. Rather, I will use its power to rule all worlds.
Such confidence.
Oh. Ah, impossible! The Princesses of Heart are all here. It must be her.
Without her heart, she will never be able to release her power.
The King's fools are here. I'll deal with them myself. You stay here and guard the princesses.
Huh. Riku is definitely sounding a lot deeper all of a sudden. I'm sure that's of no concern to anyone in the immediate vicinity whatsoever.
I'm afraid you're too late. Any moment now, the final keyhole will be unsealed. this world will be plunged into darkness. It is unstoppable.
We'll stop it. After coming this far, there's no way we're gonna let that happen.
You poor, simple fools. You think you can defeat me? Me, the mistress of all evil!
The time has finally come for our bout against Maleficent. She's going to be spending the entire battle on this rock platform she casts magic on to make float. You can just jump up onto it to attack her, but you can actively target the platform by swapping your targets and either whittle its HP down with physical attacks, or a single cast of any level of gravity will also ground it to the floor. Being a sorceress, most of her attacks are magical in nature, but while you're on the platform with her, she will try to smack you off of it with her staff. Otherwise, she can generate a cloud above her that rains down powerful Thundaga bolts around her, and she also has an attack where she effectively teleports to the other side of the arena. The teleport itself is more of an evasive technique, but she does turn into smoke while doing it, and that smoke does do damage. If you're being aggressive, easily her most common attack is her own casting of Meteor, telegraphed by her screaming, "Meteors of heaven, unleash thy fury." When she does this, a giant portal opens up behind her, sending several large meteoroids hurtling in a straight line down the room. With that said, she only ever uses this attack from either extreme of the room, either at the end of this little hallway portion at one end, or at the center of the round portion at the other end. And they're never aimed directly at you, they're always aimed effectively at the other spot she can cast the spell from. Due to this, the safest way to avoid that very damaging attack is to get to either extreme left or right side of the round portion of the room and just wait there for the spell to end. You can be super aggressive during this fight and just ignore the meteoroids and either try to leaf bracers through them or just hope one doesn't hit you, but I really wouldn't recommend it, especially on Proud mode. Otherwise in this fight, Maleficent will occasionally summon help, namely either 2 defenders usually or 2 to 4 dark balls. While they can be seen as extra sources of damage, they're not usually too aggressive in this fight in my experience, plus their ability to drop MP orbs for further castings of Gravity, Cure, or Aero, let alone HP orbs to heal you outright, actively usually makes them more helpful than anything in my experience. Plus, depending on your situation, as we saw a few moments ago, fighting them along the way, they still give experience points, so you might get a level in this fight, and if you get an extra point of strength or MP from that, you'll see dividends pretty quickly in my experience. Out of the late game boss fights, with late game in my eyes starting in Neverland, I'd say Maleficent here is probably the easiest one. She can be aggressive, but you have so many options in how you can approach this fight between the shape of the arena, the helpers that she spawns in to give you extra MP and health and all that, where this fight can get to the point where if you're aggressive yourself in any number of playstyles, you'll find she either spends most of the fight laughing and moving around the room, teleporting, or staying in one place doing her meteor attack that you can completely avoid, to the point where you can completely nullify easily the most dangerous portions of this fight. Maleficent might be a threatening presence and quite the ominous presence in the game up to now, but she's really not that big of a threat. On that note, I should say, I've remarked throughout the LP on early versus mid-game and the like. Largely, I base it on the worlds in question, start of the game through the end of the first set of the worlds is early game, of course. But mid-game is distinctly Agrabah, Halloween Town, Monstro, and Atlantica. Neverland, to me, starts late game, even though I tend to group it with the earlier set of worlds due to its relatively small scale. The main reason is the boss fight health pools. Captain Hook and Maleficent both have 900 health, and the only other fight up to now to have that number was Giant Ursula, who, might I remind you, is a wall to many first-time players for a reason. Get used to the numbers being that high too, because they only get worse from here, and not for nothing in Kingdom Hearts 1, some of the boss fights in late game can kind of drag because of it. But Maleficent is done. And she ran. But for beating that fight, Donald gets his cheer ability, so now we have access to all 3 cheers, meaning this is the point where summons can actively become very useful. In fact, if there's a fight I recommend first casting Tinkerbell in, it's the next fight. But we also got Ansem's Report 5, so let's take a look at that. To study heartless behavior, I picked one out for observation. It wiggled its antenna and, as if sensing a target, headed deep into the castle. In the deepest part of the castle, its antenna began vibrating as if searching for something. Suddenly a strange door appeared. I'd never known of its existence. It had a large keyhole, but it didn't seem to be locked. So I opened the door. What I saw on the other side mystified me. What was that powerful mass of energy? That night I observed a great meteor shower in the sky. Could it be related to the door I have opened? Well, Ansem's picture's at least starting to come into focus now. Before investigating that orb of energy, by the way, that spawned in, save, save, save. Really, you should save.
need some help?
Riku!
Yes, a Keyblade. But unlike yours, this Keyblade holds the power to unlock people's hearts. Allow me to demonstrate. Behold! Now, open your heart. Surrender it to the darkness. Become darkness itself!
This is it. This power. Darkness. The true darkness!
Welcome to what's probably the hardest fight in the main campaign, period, especially on first-timers. Remember what I said about health pools rising? Dragon Maleficent has a whopping 1,200 health. Add that to her really high damage, absurdly aggressive attack pattern, and relative resistance to most magics, you can be in for a really rough time here. As for her attacks, when you're close to her, she can swipe one of her claws at you outright or bite several times in a row like Cerberus could. She starts the fight and often throughout will just lean back and slam down to do a giant shockwave. And worth noting, there's a secondary version of that happens whenever she rotates around remotely, as each of her footsteps leave a shockwave as well that do, frankly, nuts damage. From what I remember looking at the KH wiki earlier on in the LP's recording process, I think that attack was specifically nerfed in Final Mix, but not enough for it to really feel noticeable because it's still really powerful. Occasionally, she will just outright roar, and that's usually telegraphing the fact she's about to spin around and try to whack you with her tail. Watch out for that because that is easily her most devastating single attack, and there's times where I swear I get out of the way of it either by moving out of the way or jumping, and it just does not feel like it works. Her final two notable attacks both deal with her fire breath. One is just a generally high damage breath attack that leaves lingering fire on the ground that dissipates after a few moments like so, and the other is for her to generate 8 fireballs. These all home in on Sora, and of course, really hurt, but you can either block them or whack your Keyblade at them to actually send them back at her to chip away at her HP slightly, which is honestly the best option. Plus, that gives tech points, and not for nothing, you might get an extra level to help you along the way in this fight due to that. If you want to be defensive in this fight, I recommend trying to jump onto some of the roots surrounding the arena. Doing so puts you in an elevated position perfect for casting magic at her, and if you bring some ethers and elixirs to recover your MP, you can be in a good position. Plus, on the roots, usually the only attack of hers that can hit you is the homing fireballs, and since you can return that to her anyway with a good block or Keyblade whack, you're in a really good survivability position. If you prefer to be aggressive, I recommend saving your MP and having either or both Strike Raid and Ars Arcanum equipped. Their damage is good to begin with, it gives you some extra reach, and the invincibility during them can save you from some nasty hits. A good position for either strategy actively is to get onto Maleficent's back, which you can either do from some of the higher roots or by jumping up her back legs. Doing that lets you attack her head a lot more safely than some other positions. Heck, getting on her back and strike rating her head probably has the best chances of stunning her and letting you and the party get in some extra pot shots should that work out for you. As I brought up prior to the fight, Tinkerbell is really good here, as while her auto life ability can really help, her regen can be essential, especially on higher difficulties. Due to that, I recommend your side party being Donald and Goofy, as while Beast can be helpful here, especially with his extraordinarily high item slot count. Goofy's exclusive abilities like MP Gift can go a much further distance in either an offensive or defensive strategy. There is one thing I've heard about this fight that makes some of its difficulty make sense, but I'm curious if it's actually true, so future me, I want you to do a little research here. I remember hearing people say this fight is as tough as it is because at one point it was planned to be the final boss. That would certainly track, but I'm curious if there's anything actively concrete to that. I mostly think I've heard people say it in passing more than anything else. Part of the reason I'm kind of skeptical on it is I've heard people say that about another boss fight we'll see later on, and while that would also make sense thematically, I feel like that one's also a little bit overblown, especially given I heard a certain thing about that fight in specific for years that turned out not to be exactly true. Though I'll talk more about what I mean with that fight when we reach it in a handful of parts, I believe. If memory serves, though, I'm about to gain a level by deflecting a fireball back in Maleficent. This is important because I'm about to reach level 45. On the Dream Shield route, this gives us the Mighty Counterattack ability, which is really important for an upcoming fight. Counterattack lets you follow up from parrying an opponent's attack very quickly, and that attack also gives a boosted MP recovery rate, and it always crits. That is essential for something coming up. At level 45 on the other routes, you earn MP Haste on the Dream Sword route and an Air Combo Plus on the Dream Rod route. Get out of here, Maleficent!
How ironic. She was just another puppet after all.
What?
The Heartless were using Maleficent from the beginning. She failed to notice the darkness in her heart eating away at her. A fitting end for such a fool.
For clearing that fight, we also get a Fire Glow Summon Stone, so when we next see the Fairy Godmother, we will get our next summon. The original leader of the villains might be gone now, but clearly we have one more opponent left for us here in Hollow Bastion. We're almost done here, folks. Clearing that fight also makes this door open up so we can get up to the furthest depths of the world. And I'd recommend saving here once again because the next events are also notably pretty rough, especially on first-timers. They also throw one last set of Heartless at you here. Falling down here doesn't take you back too far, but still I would recommend against it unless you really need to grind out some levels, which, hey, not for nothing. Between what you're earning in the boss fights, you're probably getting enough experience here where on certain experience routes you can really actively change how the battle tides go. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 32, we bring our time here in Hollow Bastion mostly to an end. See you guys then.